Most people know pickleball as a sport derivative of the best bits of both table tennis and traditional lawn tennis. The classic game from Bainbridge has captured a unique style of play that's been enjoyed by millions since the mid-60s. But what if we tweaked that gameplay loop just a tad to make some new game variants derivative of pickleball itself? Well, we'd end up with some pretty interesting results. Let's have a look at a few of those now. The first variation of the standard pickleball formula we have today is wheelchair pickleball. As its name implies, this is a version of the game specifically tailored for those who are bound to a wheelchair, and it's the only officially recognized USAP variation of the rules. There's only a few noteworthy tweaks to the sport to note here, but they're still intriguing nonetheless. The most interesting change is the addition of a two-bounce rule, where the wheelchair player is allowed to let the ball bounce twice in their court. This change, of course, is meant to factor in the relatively limited mobility a wheelchair offers. But I wonder how truly significant this change could be. Granted, it could definitely come in handy for shots like lobs and so on, but given the nature of a pickleball and its lack of bounce, this rule might not be quite so game-changing as one would expect. Also, singles in wheelchair pickleball works a tad differently too. It is exclusively played on half court, so think skinny singles but with wheelchairs. But apart from that, wheelchair pickleball is pretty much fundamentally the same sport, which I'm all here for. I think it's awesome that we found a way for those with physical disabilities to compete and play in this awesome sport. It's yet another reason why pickleball is growing at an exponential rate. Its accessibility is nearly unparalleled in the sports world. Next up, we have a much looser take on the concept of pickleball and sandy pickle, or beach pickleball as I like to call it. It's pretty new to the scene and has a very, different flavor. For starters, the court dimensions are a fair bit smaller than your average pickleball court to accommodate the slower movement speed you'll be getting on sandy surfaces. Court size can also vary depending on if you're playing singles or doubles. But court dimensions aside, this variation of pickleball brings with it a whole set of new rules that fundamentally alter the sport. Interestingly, serving has been pretty dramatically changed. All serves come from the right-hand side of the court, but so long as they clear the 6-foot-tall net and land within the field of play, it's fair game. Overhead, backhand, whatever, it's all legal. Needless to say, there's plenty of room to get creative with this side of the game. Another huge change you'll see in beach pickleball is the introduction of the so-called bump rule. Volleys are the only legal shots in the game because, well, naturally a pickleball just won't really bounce at all on a sandy surface. So, to compensate for this deficiency, players may pass the ball to their partner to extend rallies, which is a pretty cool concept, I won't lie. Think of volleyball-style rallies, but with a pickleball twist.
By Wisconsin.
With all these changes in mind, beach pickleball still has some callbacks to its traditional counterpart. There's still a kitchen-like area called the no spike zone, 5 feet out from the net to promote longer rallies just like in the main game. As the name implies, players cannot spike the ball from beyond this line. Moreover, the return of serve must come from behind this zone. Scoring also remains largely the same, although the second serve has been chopped off for doubles, so each team will only get one server. All in all, this beach form of pickleball has a nice blend of old and new. It reminds me of a mixture of pickleball and volleyball with its interesting rule set. Although the game is still played with standard pickleball gear and puts an emphasis on placement and control more than anything else, beach pickleball definitely offers a unique take on the sport we love. Now, let me ask you a question. Have you ever wanted to play pickleball, but just don't have access to a court nearby? Maybe you're out with your family at a barbecue, or just at the park with some friends. All you want to do is hit a plastic wiffle ball around and hear that satisfying pop 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 of a long dink rally. But, alas, there aren't any courts. Well, the folks over at the US Lawn Pickleball Association have conquered that conundrum and then some. Yes, this is real. In fact, they've pioneered a version of pickleball so bizarre and wild that it may as well be an entirely different sport. Even with minimal changes, lawn pickleball is probably the weirdest take on the sport yet. As far as I can tell, lawn pickleball has dated back to at least 2014, with regular national championships, and I say that in quotes, being hosted all the way through 2019. These tournaments honestly seem insane, which I suppose is reflective of the entire vibe lawn pickleball is going for. It's all being run out of someone's backyard, and it seems there's a greater emphasis on the booze and wacky costumes than on actual competitive play. I assume the event was interrupted by the issues the world faced in 2020 and beyond, but unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be any information about the re-emergence of a lawn pickleball tour just quite yet. Even so, it shouldn't stop us from just appreciating the absolute chaos that this pickleball variation embodies. I mean, they even mandated costumes for their version of nationals, and have an official rule that is quite literally called getting Rick and Mortied. Wild.
We're gonna call it being Rick and Morty. So, we're gonna call it Rick and Morty. So what happens when you Rick and Morty?
Rick and Morty!
Face the camera here. They're Rick and Morty. Like your point.
Now, the vast majority of lawn pickleball rules are the same as its hard court counterpart. Court dimensions, net height, the non-volley zone, and so on. It's the differences and little tweaks to the game, though, that are really worth going over. Right off the bat, lawn pickleball has tested out a change that may well be coming to the main game soon. Rally scoring.
One new rule I want to go over today, it's called speed scoring. Okay, so speed scoring means instead of a side out and nobody scores, if the serving team does not win the point, the team that wasn't serving now gets the point. So every single time that a ball is served, there's going to be a point scored.
Ditching the side-out scoring of its predecessor, lawn pickleball emphasizes a faster-paced game by ensuring that a point is scored by one team, no matter the server. Now, this is a very heated discussion in the pickleball world, and there are plenty of arguments for and against a switch to rally scoring. But it's really interesting to me that this change was organically added to the rules of lawn pickleball back in 2016, and was apparently received warmly by its local players. Granted, that's a small sample size for a game that plays wildly differently to pickleball proper, but it's certainly worth noting the apparent improvement rally scoring has made to the game, at least as reported by its players. But speaking of the unique gameplay of lawn pickleball, we need to talk about its most unique feature, a new ball. Because of the lack of bounce a traditional pickleball offers on a lawn, the USLPA has decided to replace those plastic balls with a lighter foam ball. Specifically, they cite the Waboba Aqua Bounce Jr. as their official sanctioned ball of choice, which, from what I gather, seems like a generic pool ball you see kids tossing around in the water. This change in ball, as I'm sure you can imagine, dramatically slows down the match. From what I can tell, it seems these balls work well enough, although they seem very floaty and light in the air. In fact, overall, lawn pickleball is just a floatier game. The rules even encourage it in the name of longer rallies. The serve is done underhand, as in regular pickleball. However, there's an additional stipulation. All serves must be lob serves. Specifically, any serve that isn't at least 10 feet in the air at its apex is considered a stinger serve and is illegal. They even have a 10-foot high string to determine if the serve is lobbed high enough. However, there's a cheeky little addition to this rule. Each team is allowed 3 fully legal stinger serves per game. So, hypothetically, you could go for a big man Tyson McGuffin serve to try and catch your opponents off guard and get a few free aces. Is that a confusing rule? Yes, but my goodness, it sure does sound like a fun one. Fun. That's really what all of this is about. Players dressing up in ridiculous costumes, playing with wooden paddles, getting drunk in some random guy's backyard in Utah, playing for the prestigious Pickle Cup and everlasting lawn pickleball glory. It's wild, weird, and stupid. But man, it sure seems like those folks are having fun. And at the end of the day, that's what all of these pickleball variations are meant for. Having fun. From enabling the physically impaired to refreshing the old pickleball formula, these pickleball variations are all derivative of the roots of the original sport. Pickleball was created to be a fun backyard game that could be enjoyed by all, and, well, I think these variants all do a great job in their own unique way of capturing that magic for swaths of different players. It was fascinating to learn about these 3 versions of pickleball, and honestly a little surreal, from being a sport derivative of other racket sports that focused on the accessible fun factor to having more accessible and casual revisions created from its original skeleton. Pickleball really has come full circle in a way. As the sport continues to grow and become more serious/competitive, it's reassuring to know that the original lighthearted spirit of the game will live on in these fun-focused pickleball offshoots. Thanks for watching.